Hey guys, welcome to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm 26 years old. I grew up in Florida and I'm currently living in Utah with my husband. I work as a content creator at a skincare company, and when I'm not doing that, I like to do YouTube videos for fun. I mostly do videos on just my everyday life and things I'm going through in my 20s, and one of the biggest slaps in the face that I've had in my mid-20s has been just coming to terms with adulthood. Let me explain. It all started the day I turned 25. That's honestly when I felt it. That feeling of, oh crap, I'm getting old. You're not 20 anymore. You realize that everyone is getting married, having children, buying homes, talking about life insurance and HSA. That was also the first day that I started my 9-to-5 corporate job as well. 2 weeks before that, I had graduated from college, and the day after I graduated, I got married. Yeah, talk about big changes coming all at once. I didn't realize how much I wasn't ready to grow up until that day. Growing up, I had this mindset that when I reached this goal, I would for sure make it. When I got married, I'd make it. That's when my life would start. When I graduate from college, yep, I've made it, because that's when my life starts. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we grew up setting these expectations, and then we get there, and it's like, well, now what? Or worse, we get there, and we realize that we didn't complete what we thought we'd complete by this age. Little did I know that I was about to enter into my quarter-life crisis. No one had told me that this was going to happen. To be honest, I had never even heard of the term quarter-life crisis, and when I say it out loud, it sounds kind of dramatic, but it's a very real thing. It's something that will trigger existential questions of purpose, role, and direction. Everyone's quarter-life crisis varies in intensity, I've noticed, or some people just don't get them. Mine came as a result of some very big changes. I had just graduated from college. I got married the next day. I started my big girl job 2 weeks later. My parents moved to a different country, so it was a completely different time zone, so I'd get to talk to them less often. And then all of a sudden, I had all this free time that I didn't have before. I didn't have hobbies, I realized. I didn't have things that I could turn to that would help fill my day. My very best friend from college, she ghosted me, and I had no idea why. Yeah, I had my husband, but he was still in school and was very busy all the time, so I hardly got to see him. What made things even worse were that I just kept getting so wrapped up with the shoulds of my life. I should have graduated a long time ago. I should have not studied journalism, considering I didn't even go into that field of work. I should start having kids now so then I can be a very young mom like all the other girls in Utah. I should have more friends by this age. So with all these new changes and all of this ambiguity, I cracked. I've never really experienced depression in my life or severe anxiety, but during this time period, I felt all of those things. I was very depressed. I was very anxious. I was very sad. It was like a very deep, dark sadness that I felt all the time, that it caused me to have like 3 breakdowns a day. So after 9 months of sadness and despair, I finally decided to open up to my parents about it. I honestly felt a little embarrassed about opening up to them. I'd opened up to my husband and he reacted perfectly. I don't know why I doubted that my parents would react the same way, but I think the reason I was so embarrassed to open up to my parents about my quarter-life crisis was because I wanted them to think that I was okay, that I wasn't this little girl that needed to be taken care of anymore. Like, I don't need my parents. And when I did tell my parents, they were so supportive. Like I said, I don't know why it took me so long to tell them. And they were so supportive, and they showed their love for me. And I think the thing that helped me the most was them telling me that I wasn't broken. They assured me that I wasn't going crazy, and they did tell me though that I should see a therapist. So I went to see a therapist, and they told me that it was pretty normal for people in their mid-20s to be going through this quarter-life crisis. And so I wasn't diagnosed with a mental illness or anything. They said that everything I was feeling was normal. And they also said that one of the reasons why my moods could have been shifting like so drastically was probably because of my birth control. Therapy ended up being like this safe space for me where I could process my thoughts and I could process my emotions about why I was feeling the way I felt, and it allowed me to be really vulnerable with myself and with someone else. And it also taught me that it was okay to not be okay. Talking about this is a little hard just because it brings back memories of kind of a dark period in my life, and it just makes me see how much I have changed in the last year. 25-year-old Sid is very different from 26-year-old Sid now. And that's honestly why I decided to make this video, because I thought, if I can help someone out, at least one person out, and kind of share an experience that really was hard, but it also kind of shaped me and helped me be better, then let's do it. And I also wanted to share a few ways that I personally learned to cope with all of this change and with adulthood. So the first thing is, if you haven't gone to a therapist, don't feel embarrassed to go to one. The second way that I've learned to cope has been just finding a support system, finding people to lean on. Going through a quarter-life crisis can feel super isolating, and it can feel like you're the only one that's going through it. But I promise you, you're not the only one that's going through it. So find people that have gone through this. Ask them how they've coped. And even if they haven't gone through something like this, that's okay. Just find people that you can trust, that you can open your heart to. I was keeping in my quarter-life crisis all to myself. It took me a while to tell my husband, and then it took me even longer to tell my family, and it took me honestly about a year to tell my friends. I kind of wish I would have opened up about it a lot earlier, so I could at least have people that could help me out during whenever I felt triggered and I'd fall back and spiral into all those feelings that I had. My third piece of advice would be to find hobbies. That was honestly probably the hardest thing for me. When I hit that crisis, I didn't have anything to turn to. I had Netflix, but for me, I like to watch TV and watch movies when I'm tired or I just want to zone out. And watching those things, it's not fulfilling for me at all. I need hobbies that are fulfilling for me, that help me feel strong with mentally and emotionally. And so I didn't have any hobbies, so it was kind of hard because I didn't have anything to do in my spare time. So I really started searching on the internet, what are hobbies, to see things that different people were into. And I even asked a few friends and family members what kind of hobbies they'd like to do. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was learning to play the piano. When I was little, I always wanted to play the piano, and so I taught myself during quarantine, which is when my quarter-life crisis kind of happened, and I learned how to play the piano. And it wasn't so much mastering the songs that was important to me, it was the way it sounded. The music itself just had a healing effect on my heart, and it just brought a lot of peace to me. So those were one of the hobbies that I've been able to develop over this time. So my last piece of advice would be to start questioning your shoulds. I mentioned a few of those shoulds earlier in my video. Quarter-life crises are frequently tied to ideas of what you should have accomplished or what you should be doing at this point in your life. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to feeling that you're somehow failing to measure up to this external standard. Shoulds are deeply rooted in societal expectations and your observations of other people. Something that might help might be taking a break from social media, which I did quite a bit, and just not having something that allows you to compare yourself to other people. Another thing to remember is that your goals can change. What you wanted maybe 5 years ago, or what you wanted when you were 18 or 20, will be different most likely than what you want when you're 25, 26. I wanted to be a journalist growing up. I knew I wanted to do that, and here I am 26, and I've decided I don't want to do that anymore, and that's okay. So try to not hold yourself to outdated expectations that they no longer apply to your life anymore. When you start to reframe your thoughts, you'll start seeing that your thoughts are what really are making your circumstances seem a lot worse than what they really are. If you've ever gone through a crisis and need any help, feel free to reach out. Like I said, I've gone through this and I'm still kind of going through it, and so I understand and I want to help. So feel free to message me. Feel free to comment below any ways you've coped through a crisis or something hard in your life. And at the end of the day, don't forget that you are a lot stronger than you really think you are.